all doing today? This is a special episode of Divorce Happy Hour Live. I'm your host today, John Knocklinger. I'm one of the co-owners of New Jersey Divorce Solutions, Private Knocklinger, a divorce and family law firm located in central New Jersey. I hope everyone's having a great day. I know my daughter just returned to school today. I think a lot of you probably are dealing with that right now, dealing with all the lovely new challenges that we have as parents as our kids go back to school during this COVID-19 era that we're all in. So today I want to talk to you about divorce mediation and how it really can help you resolve your divorce quickly and inexpensively. We get a lot of calls from people who are interested in mediation, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it is and what it isn't. So I'm hoping to dispel some of those rumors and misconceptions today. So divorce mediation at its core is a process where you and your spouse come to see a neutral third person like myself, and that person helps you go through each and every one of the issues in your case and tries to help the two of you reach an agreement. Now, mediation is not a court process. Now, certainly if you go through the court process, you will end up having to go through mediation. And in that context, it's a little bit different of a process. But if you start the whole thing by going to mediation first, what's going to end up happening is you and your spouse are going to be able to come into your divorce process with just a common purpose of finding a resolution. It's not Jane versus John or John versus Jane. It's just John and Jane sitting down with somebody to help them go through all their issues. And so what ends up happening is people think that mediation is a process where you go to before somebody who's going to tell you how to resolve things or is going to actually tell your spouse how it really is. That's not mediation. Mediation, a good mediation process, would be one where you and your spouse come in already having discussed some of the issues, and you have a mediator help you bridge the gaps where you guys cannot agree on things. For example, a lot of people can agree on where the kids are going to live and what school the kids are going to go to and what the parenting schedule is going to be. That's something that most people who are good candidates for mediation can actually agree to. But maybe they can't agree on how much support's going to get paid or how they're going to divide certain things or what they're going to do with the house. So when you come to mediation, what's going to end up happening is the mediator's only going to focus on the things you and your spouse can't agree on. This isn't a go back and rehash everything that you've already agreed to. This is take the things you can't agree to and try to find a compromise that makes sense. Now, when I do mediation, the first thing I tell people is I want you to go and meet with an attorney before we start the process. And the reason for that is what I don't want anyone to do is to agree to something in mediation and then later go speak to an attorney who tells them, oh, you got a bad deal or you shouldn't have agreed to that. And then it blows up the whole agreement. So I have everyone go speak to an attorney before mediation so you have an idea of what you're entitled to. Which is a phrase I hate. But what are you entitled to so that you have a good idea about what you should or should not be asking for when you and your spouse are sitting in front of a mediator? Now, once you come to mediation, my goal is always to not disturb things that you guys are in agreement about. So the first thing that I'm going to go through is each and every issue in your case. If you have kids, we're going to start with the kids because I think that's the most important thing. Go through and figure out, do you have an agreement on custody? Do you have an agreement on the parenting schedule, meaning when the kids are going to be where? Do you have an agreement on how you're going to support the kids? Do you have an agreement on extracurricular activities? If your kids are close to college, have you already talked about college? So we're going to go through all of those things, and if you guys already have an agreement, we're not going to disturb it. And that's really the beauty of going through a mediation process is you're not going through a legal process. It's really what do you and your spouse think is the most appropriate and fair way to resolve things. I tell people we leave the law at the door because really the law gets in the way a lot of times of settlement. Because if someone thinks, okay, the law says I'm entitled to X or Y should happen, then people really don't even want to think about, does that make sense for my family? Does that make sense for me and my spouse? If you've got kids, the one thing I always want to remind people of is you're going to have to co-parent with this person for many, many years. Your kids are going to get married someday, probably. And what? Do you not want to be able to, sit at the same table with your ex-spouse? So when you're going through a divorce, sometimes it's not always about winning and getting what the law says you're entitled to. It's about finding a fair resolution. That's what mediation's all about. Mediation's there to take the law out of it, to take the animosity out of it, to take the John versus Jane out of it, and really just sit down and try to figure out what makes sense for you and your family. Every family is different. Every family will have a unique solution to their divorce problems. No two cases are alike. No two families are alike. And, what happens a lot of times when you go through the legal process, the litigation process, the court process, is that too many attorneys try to pigeonhole every case into their idea about what should happen in that particular case. And then what ends up happening is you lose sight of what's best for your family. And sometimes it becomes about winning, and it becomes about getting a good result. Because, I've paid all this money to an attorney. I want to get the best result I can. Well, that's not what mediation's about. Mediation is coming early and sitting down and trying to figure out what's best for your family. And like I said, every family is different, and we're going to find a solution that's good for you. So that's what divorce mediation is. Now, when you come to mediation, the first thing that, if you come to mediation with our firm, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to be told to gather a bunch of documents. And the reason you're going to gather a bunch of documents is so it's just so we have enough information to actually have an intelligent conversation when we start mediation. Because the last thing I want to do is to have you come back for a second session just because we didn't have enough information the first session. So you're going to get an email with a bunch of documents together and with an invitation again to sit down with your spouse and see what the two of you can agree to before you even come to mediation. So you're going to come to mediation. We're going to go through all of the issues that that your case has that we need to resolve. So if you've got kids, all the things with your kids. Do we need to talk about alimony? Do we need to talk about distributing, a house? What about your cars, retirement accounts? Is there debt? Are there tax issues? What is there that we need to talk about? We'll go through all of those issues, because the one thing that I never want to do is bring up an issue that's not an issue, because sometimes that can create problems. So we'll go through all the issues, figure out what we need to resolve, and then literally one by one go through them. A lot of times I like to keep everyone in the same room if there's no attorneys involved. If sometimes it makes sense to divide you into two rooms and then talk to everyone privately. That way you can be a little bit more open and honest. But I will tell you that the best candidates for mediation early in the case, when people don't have attorneys and it's just two people sitting in a room trying to resolve things, the best people that are candidates for that kind of mediation are people that can sit in the room together and talk. They really are. Because if I have to go between two rooms at this stage in your case, at the very, very beginning, then it's probably not the best situation. Or you've got some issues that maybe need a little bit more of a little bit more hand-holding, or you might need an attorney there to help you navigate some of those issues. So, usually I like to have a conversation when people call for mediation with both spouses, and I ask them both in front of the other one, are you prepared to come and be reasonable? Are you prepared to compromise? Are you prepared to be fair? Because I want you both to understand that that's what it's about. Being fair. Be fair to your spouse. Be fair to what they want, and quite frankly, be open and honest about what you need. A lot of times when people call our office, not just about mediation, but about anything, the number one thing that we're trying to do is assess, what are your goals? What is it that's important to you? Everyone's got something different. It might be staying in the house. It might be making sure that you've got custody of your kids. Everybody has a goal or goals that are most important. So I like to make sure that that's what's guiding a mediation session is what is actually not resolved and what are people's goals? What is it you really need? What is it that's going to make you happy? And then what we do is we try to figure out a way to make that work with the other person. Now, mediation requires open and honest dialogue. So you can't lie. You can't hold things back. Because when we reach an agreement at mediation, it's not binding until the two of you sign the agreement. So what's really important to me is not that you both say, oh yeah, I agree to that. It's that you really mean it. So that requires open and honest dialogue. Because if you're not open and honest about what's important to you, you might be tempted to agree to something only later to say, I don't really agree to that. And that's not helpful. You just wasted the process. If you're not coming to mediation with the goal of putting an agreement together, an agreement that you can handshake with your spouse at the end of mediation and say, yeah, I agree to that. Now, the reason I say that is we have law in New Jersey that agreements have to be in writing and signed to be binding. So you're gonna, whatever agreement we reach, it's gonna be put into a written agreement that you will sign. So I don't want a situation where you come to mediation, you agree to something, and then by the time that the document gets written, you have changed your mind. So open and honest dialogue. Also, you cannot be hiding things and lying. So no lying, no hiding. If you've got a bank account out there that you're going to try to hide, it's not going to work in mediation. Because what's going to happen is the two of you are going to make certain agreements based on a common set of facts. And those facts are what I'm going to go through at the very beginning. What bank accounts do you have? What property do you have? And we're going to go put together a list. What do you think is going to happen if you put together that list and then your spouse finds out you lied about something? It's going to blow up the entire thing. And now, again, you've wasted a process where you could have resolved things quickly, and now all of a sudden you're in full-blown litigation, spending tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. That's what we're trying to avoid. So if you're not willing to be open and honest and actually not lie and present everything that you have, you might as well just not even do mediation. It's a waste of your time. You need to make sure that you're willing to come and tell your spouse everything, regardless of whether or not that means you're going to have to give your spouse more money. That's not really what the point here is. The point here is to be open and honest. And you really need to do that in mediation. Otherwise, again, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. And more importantly, you're further damaging your relationship with your soon-to-be ex-spouse. And like I said before, if you've got kids, it's so important that that relationship be sound. Your kids need it. It's good for your kids. And I think if you kind of think about your kids as being the most important thing when you go into a divorce process, you're probably going to turn out with a good result for them. And ultimately, that's what's most important. And lastly, you cannot be children. All right? If you and your spouse are just going to sit and name call and throw insults back and forth at each other, just spare me. Don't even come to mediation. Because that is what children do. When you come to mediation and you're resolving a divorce, guess what? You're adults. You're not children. You are not there to sit and air all your grievances at your spouse. We already know you're getting divorced. We don't need to sit and hear all the reasons why you're getting divorced. We already know you're getting divorced. So let's figure out how to resolve it. If it's just going to be a matter of airing grievances and, who's having an affair with who and who did what to who and who didn't do this during the marriage and who did that during the marriage, do you think we're going to be able to make a resolution? Do you think we're going to be able to resolve anything? I'll tell you the answer. We might, but it's going to take a lot more effort and you're going to leave mediation not happy. So if you're not willing to be adults and come into mediation and treat it like a serious process where we're really just trying to resolve your marriage, where we're just trying to figure out what you need to resolve to get divorced, then again, don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. Go hire an attorney and go through the legal process and spend all your money. I mean, that's really your alternative, right? It's just to spend all your money on a legal process, or you can be open and honest. You cannot lie. You can be honest, which I guess is the same thing as not lying, right? And you can act like an adult. If you're willing to do all those things, mediation's a great thing for you. Now, obviously, if you've got some complicated issues, if you own a business or you've got property in other countries, you might need to have a little bit more more advice from an attorney before you go through the mediation process. But those cases are few and far between. Most people have fairly simple marriages. No offense. I mean, most people, it's simple. Most people just don't need to go through this whole process. I mean, if you just own a house, have 2 cars, have a 401k, and you've got 2 kids, there is no reason whatsoever that you should be in the litigation process. None. Zero. If you've spent thousands of dollars litigating, you have wasted your money, because those cases are so simple. If you've got a good mediator that can help you identify problems and problem solve. That's what mediation's all about. That's what the goal is. The goal is so that you save money and you prevent yourself from having a bad relationship with your ex-spouse. 2 great goals. And those 2 goals, more than anything, should guide your decision to make mediation the first choice in how you resolve your marriage and get divorced. If you do not use mediation as your first option, I think you are really doing yourself and your family a terrible disservice, because you are going to find yourself spending far more money than you should be spending. You can come to mediation and you can get it all done and get it done quickly and get it done inexpensively. You have the choice, and you have the choice before you start the process. So be sure you consider mediation as the number 1 goal and the number 1 choice when you start going through the divorce process. All right, so that's my message for today. What is mediation and how can you use it to help yourself get divorced? I apologize if you hear any noise outside. I think my lawn is getting mowed. Isn't that just great timing while I'm on doing this episode of Divorce Happy Hour? Hope everyone has a great day. If your kids started school today, I hope they have a great time, whether they're doing in person or virtual. Everybody stay safe. Continue trying to keep this virus away from all of us so we can get back to our normal lives. And we'll see you next time for another episode of Divorce Happy Hour.